You all asked some great questions, and we're going to get some great answers, but I think we should start with this. A question for both of you. How do you stay so fit? You both look fabulous.
Go, Sharon.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay.
Chasing kids around.
Yeah, that's true.
I was going to say, I'm going to tell y'all something. It is one way I work out my anxiety and stress. I would be, I've told my daughters before, I think if it had been a different day, because I look back on myself as a child, and I think if I were a child today, I'd probably be one of those they needed to put on medication. I think that I would have a full-on anxiety disorder. I really do. And it's one way that I process stress and process is that and it's mostly walking. At this point, most of what I do rowing. I walk every day, and I do some hand weights. And the reason I do that is because, like a number of you that are around my age, I'm having some bone loss. And so it comes to a point where, for your own sake, if something hurts, you got to find a way to, kind of stretch it. But I think the best answer I have for you is I live under a lot of stress. That's a terrible answer. It's terrible.
I'm actually also a big walker, and I am among the group that it is difficult. Maybe this is because my kids are little, but it is very difficult for me to pray and sit in one place without falling asleep.
Oh, this is good.
Anyone else? So I actually pray walking.
While you walk.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon,
Yeah.
I love that.
A prayer hack.
Yeah.
Good.
Any way you have to do it. I had a good friend who had her quiet time while vacuuming. As I live and breathe. She had so many kids, and it was never without volume in the house. So she would just get out the vacuum, and she'd go real close to them so they'd run, And she'd pray while she was vacuuming. I love that.
I don't hate that at all. Okay, here's a serious question. This is for Beth. What advice do you have for a woman whose husband has stepped away from the church and no longer spiritually leads the family?
Oh, that is a good question. I try never to let him tell me any of them in advance, and then sometimes I'm sorry I didn't know. Sometimes he'll pass one by me in case it might not be appropriate for the day, but I have had quite the journey with my husband, who I love very, very much. I've been married this coming fall for 45 years, 45 miraculous years. And the reason why Keith and I have made it is because we've each been married to 5 different people. Truly. And so we didn't, in one marriage, so we didn't ever have to divorce and remarry because we kept being different than we were. It's like, who are you now? So, but he's had quite a journey, and so have I. Y'all, my answer to this is gonna sound so hyper spiritual, but it's the truth. It's the only answer I've got. And that is just that my stability has been in Jesus. And it is the only way I've been able to stay stable. So that whatever was rocking and roll, I don't know if you've read the memoir, but I am more transparent about some of the things we've dealt with. And living with my husband has had to live with bipolar and very serious PTSD that he earned through the worst tragedy, the worst kind of tragedy, and a fire when he was a little boy with his brother. And so we've had a lot. And I just want you to know, I came in with equal junk. We both, I say all the time, Travis has heard me say this so many times, baggage attracts baggage. Whether we know it or not, we are trying to match that set of luggage up. So I literally picked the guy on my campus that I thought he was so cute that I could hardly bear it and was probably as messed up as I was. And then we made it together. So you can imagine what our lives were like. But I don't know what the ministry would look like without this exact marriage. I don't know how to put it into words, but when I think about the arrogance I would have had, and I think about if I had married one of my friends' husbands who, not after they married him. But to begin with, like Sharon, I'd be going all over the place, me and my husband doing marriage seminars. And if you ever see that I'm doing a marriage seminar, come get me. Come get me again. But we just keep falling back in love. And the last time I really didn't want to. I was like, I'm not doing that again. But I did. And hold tight to Jesus and try to stay off the roller coaster. I got to a place, I said this last time I spoke, if this any help to anyone, I had to come to a place. My husband could not, because of his PTSD, could not get out of that garage where the fire was. It was so early. He was just less than 2. So he couldn't escape it. He just lived so much of his life back in that nightmare, night terrors, everything you can imagine. In order to have my sanity, I had to step out of the garage where I'm like, I'm in the driveway. I'm right here. I cannot ride that ride with you. I can't. I tried and tried and tried, but we just went whoosh. And so both of us doing that, not going to work. So I'd say to you, oh, you're going to want to throw something at me. What good might the Lord do for you if your husband maybe was not, if you were just having to rely on the fact that he could see Jesus at work? What if this is a chance to be able to minister to some other women whose husbands couldn't care less about the Lord? And I'll say lastly, pray hard. Y'all, I believe in the power of prayer. And, if you're getting the idea Keith is a deacon, he's not. But he is mine. He is mine. And life's hard, but God's faithful.
That's good. All right, Sharon, this is for you. I wish this person would have put her name. I'm headed to seminary down in New Orleans on Tuesday. Any words of wisdom?
Oh, that's so exciting.
Do you want to reveal yourself? You don't have to. Oh, right there. She is
Oh, congratulations.
So, New Orleans Baptist. Okay.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm cheering for you. So I would actually echo something I just posted on social media the other day, which is that the purpose of seminary is not knowledge, but formation.
So good, Sharon.
And this is really important because I think, seminarians are notoriously annoying.
Sharon. Annoying.
And it's because I was like that, so I'm not like looking down on them, but you get a little bit of knowledge and then you think you know a lot. And that's not the point at all. The point is for you to grow in likeness to Jesus and to grow in humility. And so I would especially, just as you're thinking about the classes that you're taking, pay attention to not just the content, but the professors that you want to learn from because of their posture before God.
Sharon, that's so good.
Really good. All right. Blessings to you on Tuesday and beyond.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know which one of y'all want to answer this one, but I surely do not. When we pass, is there a waiting period to go to heaven? Do we wait upon the coming of the Lord to rise or go to heaven immediately?
You want me to jump in? Okay, couple of things. I want to remind you when Jesus said in the gospel, when he said that the scripture says, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he is not the God of the dead, but of the living. I want to also remind you of the time on the Mount of Transfiguration when they saw Elijah and Moses talking with Jesus. So those we know, I mean, they are in the presence. They are in the presence. And then Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul says he refers to being absent from the body and being present with the Lord. But in Philippians chapter 1, he goes as far as to say, listen, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. If I depart and am with Christ, that is far better. But if I remain with you, then I can labor among you. So he is putting two options in front of us in those verses. I mean, there are other places where we can go, but I want to circle back to that in just a moment. He's saying I can either stay here in the body or I could depart and be with Jesus. In those verses where he's talking about to live as Christ and to die as gain, he's not giving any other point of view. Are there other places that make you think, okay, then what does the resurrection in the last day look like? My original Bible doctrine teacher taught that we go, I don't know, I'm just telling you, this is the way he taught it, was that we were immediately with the Lord, but that our permanent eternal bodies would be at the resurrection. I don't know. One thing I know for sure is we're not ghosts because they did not look like ghosts. That wasn't the way they were described. But here is what I want to say to you. Have any of you ever gone under a general anesthetic? So you know that when you wake up, it's like you have no idea how long you've been out. This may not be any encouragement to somebody, but I'm just going to tell you one way or the other. When the shout comes, we're gone. We're out. Our bodies are made new, and we shall have bodies like his. So I'm going to tell you, maybe you're like, this doesn't satisfy me, but it doesn't make any difference. You're going to close your eyes, and you're going to open them, and you're going to see the face of Jesus. That's it.
Why are you so smart?
I'm old.
You're so dadgum smart. Okay, Sharon, this is along the same lines. Where was your blazer from last night?
That was good, buddy. I wanted to know that too.
I think I've had it a while. I think it was from Nordstrom Rack.
From Rack. That's a
So-
good word right
Do
there.
you like a sale? I love a sale.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think what I loved about it was probably the same thing the person asked. It looked light. Not light enough with as hot as it was last night. God bless Sharon. But
No, I mean, one of the things you have to factor in when you're speaking is, will my underarm sweat show up?
100%.
And that was a good blazer for that.
Yeah.
So
Y'all, honestly, you cannot imagine all the fashion faux pas if you're a speaker. You cannot even imagine all the things that go wrong. You cannot. And that's one of them, is that you have not tested that outfit and you look down and you've got sweat down to here. It's just like, is there no end to this? Humility. Yes.
25 years of living proof, and this weekend there's been more talk of undergarments.
I'm sorry, buddy. It just all fell apart.
All right.
It's her fault. It was the woman the Lord had given
Last
me.
night after the event, a bunch of us were standing in the restaurant at the hotel. She walked up and she goes, "Hi there, I'm the lady without the bra." She did. We love you. Okay, this is for both of you. As a mama of little ones, what is the key to making Jesus real to my kids and raising them up in him? What are some keys? How old are your kids, Sharon, right now? 10, 7, 5?
10, 8, 5.
10, 8, 5.
Yeah, so I was telling Beth beforehand, I'm always honestly hesitant because my children are so little to speak authoritatively into parenting because it's all
Got a lot in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I know?
While that may be true to some extent, I want to say something. I want to ask, right behind Dana, are y'all sisters or mother and daughter? You are so darling. Can you tell me how old you are? I'm talking about the daughter. 15. I cannot tell you how glad I am you're here. I really believe the Lord wants to use you. I really do believe he does. But I want to tell you something. Okay, so case in point, Sharon. I was watching her a little bit during our praise and worship, during Shout to the Lord, and I could tell that some of this was familiar. Melissa, my daughter, my youngest daughter, was with us at our last LPL. I got her up here to do Q&A, and I'm going to tell you something. That is the last kind of thing. Melissa does not like the spotlight at all, but I dragged her up here. But during that whole group of music from the 90s, she just wept. She just cried like a baby. Why? Because she'd been raised on them. So I'm saying to you, the reason why those songs are dear to us is because we remember, oh my goodness, the Lord's carried me. Remember how naive our love was at that time, and yet here you still are. Look, the devil has not been able to drive you out of the sanctuary. Look, what are you doing here? And so I'm going to say to you, Sharon, it makes a heck of a lot of difference. They do remember. My children would not want to. There are a lot of ways. We had a difficult home. I wish that we hadn't, but we had the dynamics in our home were too rough not to have had quite the journey. But they would not take any of being raised on Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, all of that whole era. They wouldn't trade anything for that. And so I say to you, I'll give you Deuteronomy 6, the part where God commands them through Moses. He says, bind these things to you and teach them to your children. And you're going out and you're coming in. What I would tell you is that we don't just teach. I didn't want my girls. Jesus saved me. He saved my life. And so it was important to me that my girls didn't think he's just the big bad boss that is going to smack you with a fly swatter the first thing you do wrong. I wanted them to know the love of Jesus that had made their mother half sane after my childhood. And so I was careful about that, but we talked in normal conversation. It'd be like, well, I'm really going to ask the Lord to bring those things back to your remembrance as you take that test. Just day in, day out. Look at that what a gorgeous sunrise, Lord. Just in regular conversation, not in judgmental, but I mean, and we discipline when we need to, which is continually, but it's just that I will say to you, this is a hard thing to hear. And I had to say it to myself. What we have to do, it's one reason why, if you're a mom, fight for your joy and fight for your attitude in Christ, because at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, do you have anything your children would want? So if we're in a bad mood all the time, but by golly, they're going to obey Jesus. They're saying, I don't see fruit that I would want. And listen, we're so flawed. You have to go back 1,000 times and go. I mean, Melissa would say to me, well, that wasn't very Christian-y. And, I'd have to go, it surely wasn't. And I ask your forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? But it's hard raising kids. It's hard, but it's good.
One thing that I would add that has been really freeing for me is the reminder that I don't have to be a perfect parent because my kids already have one.
Oh, Sharon, yes.
And so my job is very simple, which is to point to him. And so just to give you an example of how this has played out, I shared last night just the anger that I was wrestling with during the pandemic and how that spilled out, just because I would wake up in the morning, I would be like, Lord, help me not to yell at my children.
Yes.
And then I would yell at my children.
Yes.
And I felt like I was in this endless cycle of it. But, I could have just felt racked with guilt, and I did some days, but I also went to my kids and I apologized to them a lot. And one of the things that I said to them a lot was, I need Jesus to help me in this. And that's the language we use a lot when we talk about areas of character growth, is not simply like you need to do better at this, but you will actually fail without the help of the Holy Spirit. And so I had an opportunity to model that every day.
Oh, I love that answer.
So good. Lord, is that you calling?
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, yes, Lord.
Okay, this is for both of you. I've enjoyed Beth and Travis on the Big Boo podcast. Are there any podcasts either of you enjoy listening to?
You go, Sharon. Sharon's on a really good one. The Resilient Pastor. She's on with the team, and it is excellent. What do you like to listen to?
So does anyone here know about the Enneagram? Okay. So I'm an Enneagram 7. So a lot of I would love to say I listen to a lot of like very spiritual podcasts, but I actually use podcasts for kind of like fun and escape. And so I've shared this publicly before, but I don't know if you know this about me. I love Disney podcasts.
I did not know there was any such thing.
Are you those Disney people?
Yes.
Now, I thought I remembered you saying, because all at once I kind of had a memory come back to me. I think I did know that you also like the suspense, that wasn't there one you referred to on Twitter sometime, it was several years ago, about one that, and I may have made that up. But that's what I love.
Yeah.
If it's not really
like
spiritual,
true crime type.
Yes.
Yeah. I do like those too, but I really I'm a big. Are there any Disney adults here? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. So that is my like guilty pleasure.
Well, what does Disney. It do? What are they talking about?
Well, there's different ones. Like there's some that are about the history of Disney. Like you learn about like Walt Disney or kind of the history of the company. And then there's some that are about, I could honestly talk about this for like an hour. Like
this is so interesting.
This is one way that like helped me through the pandemic is this is not a podcast, but on Disney Plus, there's this documentary called The Imagineering Story. And I watched this thing over and over again. It's about the creative people that design the parks. And it's about leadership, and it's about creativity and taking risks. And it really like spoke, I think, to the church planter side of me, to be honest, because Walt Disney had to like leverage his home and go into debt to, pursue this dream. And so I really love Disney.
I love the way you answered that, because I agree that there are things that can really, really like edify you in a spiritual sense that aren't spiritual at all. I was thinking of where Paul says in Philippians 4, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's honorable, whatever's just, whatever's pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any moral excellence, if there's anything praiseworthy, dwell on these things. And sometimes just a beautiful movie. Sometimes I love sports. So, and you talk about a sports addict right here. And I don't love all of them. I love basketball, but this is football right here, and basketball. You really do love all of them. But I do some of that too. I love Russell Moore's podcast, and probably because we've had such a similar journey, so it kind of helps me process. I love Tim Keller's podcast, which is his sermons through the years. I love the bulletin, which is a conversation between about 4 different people at Christianity Today. I think that's a ton. I love to hear people converse. So I love to have dialogue. I love Twitter. I don't like monologue. I don't want to just tell them something. I like the interaction. So it's a thing that I'm drawn to in podcasts. I sort of like the panels.
That's good. We probably have some Kentucky Wildcat fans in here, don't we? Sharon?
You just has to.
Sharon went to Duke. I'm a UNC Tar Heel fan. We're just going to have to agree to be one in the Lord. Right?
Neither one of you are popular here today.
I know, it's all right. I'd rather be right than popular. It's fine.
Yeah. That was good, buddy. That was good.
Okay. Let's return to Jesus here. That's too serious. I got to transition.
Yeah, and we'll just do one more because we got some.
Oh,
good
just
music.
one more?
Don't you think? Because it's a quarter till.
Yeah. Well, let's start with this
Two
one.
more.
Okay. This sweet lady did not
Y'all are
give
so
us her
ballsy.
name. Beth, this is going to be tender to you right now. I lost my husband 9 months ago, and it has been very hard to get through the grieving process. Have you lost someone close to you? How did God get you through the grieving process?
Yep.
Can you give any examples of what helped you to get through that process?
Last February 7th, my big brother, who was this is the best way I know to put it. You know your person. And by that, I mean the one that you share all the stupid stuff with it. And that's my husband. But I was raised with my brother. We could complete one another's sentences. Also, he was extremely meaningful to me because he is the singular thing that God used in my home and growing up to keep me from hating men. And I would have. I was abused by my father. So my big brother was 8 years older, and he was completely trustworthy. And we talked constantly. And Travis is so much like him. And I know it is one reason why we meshed so quickly is that he would be sort of the unsanctified version of Travis, just gifted to a point that it's ridiculous. Musical theater, conductor, composer, all of the things, but everything was poetry to him. Everything was color, and to describe a meal, it would just be like ridiculous, just ridiculous. And so that he just literally was walking down a sidewalk and dropped dead. And I mean, the absence, it's daily. Just Sheila, I love you so much. I love you so much. My friend Sheila lost her husband, and that was her, So anyway, we just like every day are so glad for eternal life. And I have my brother buried in my dog cemetery on my property. I don't know any other way to. Did y'all not think that was funny? Because it is.
That's also true. It's true.
It's 100% true. 100% true, because his family lives abroad and they don't really have, we're the only permanent property in the family. And so I got to have his remains, and I have a dog cemetery, and I buried him in the dog cemetery. So he loves it. I promise you. I promise you that there is nowhere he would rather be. Nowhere. Anyway, I miss him every day. Every day.
Okay, I think maybe we'll close with this question because you've been speaking on this this weekend a little bit about forgiveness. What do you do when you have chosen to forgive someone but you can't seem to get past the hurt?
Sharon, you go there. Even if you're right in the middle of it, because that still speaks.
Yeah, this is something Beth and I have talked about, that I've been on a journey of in the last several years. And I think we all, because our country is so divided right now, I think the cracks in our nation run through every family. They run through every church. And so I think we're coming out of the last several years, a lot of us feeling a lot of woundedness. There's just the wounds of life as well. But this is something that I've been processing the last several years and have felt a lot of struggle with. One part of my personality when it comes to like big ideas in faith is I like to figure out, like, how can I reframe this in a way that makes it easy for me to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And if I can just reframe it in a way that makes sense to me, then I can sort of like master this part of the Christian life. And so I spent a good bit of time trying to figure out, I just need to reframe forgiveness. Like I need to just think about it in a new way, and then I'll figure it out. Then it'll click. And at some point I realized you can't do that with forgiveness. That it is an honest to goodness miracle every time that it happens. It is a work of the Spirit, not a work of the flesh. And so I realized I'm going to have to wait on God with this. But what has also been helpful to me is remembering that forgiveness is not a feeling.
Yes.
But is really, in a lot of ways, it's a choice. Like when that grief comes up, it's how am I choosing to respond to it? So am I choosing to respond to it by like rehashing, everything that I feel hurt about? Or am I choosing to respond to it by praying for that person? Instead of choosing vengeance, even if it's just in my heart, how can I choose love? And so that has been really helpful to me, just of knowing it doesn't have to feel any way. It's just how I respond to it.
Yeah. And just a long obedience in that same direction. You just keep, where you ask the Lord over and over again, put your love in my heart. Put your love on. I think it's also just recognizing what it does to us. That it's so erosive to the soul. It's like, you know what? If I'm going to be free, I really have got to follow through here. And I got to know it mattered to Christ. It mattered to him.